Okay, Chris wants to talk about Amway.
Yeah, guys, I do have an Amway experience. Several years ago, I actually had a supervisor at my job try to recruit me for Amway.
Did he badger you to join? Or
he did badger me to join, and looking back, I really should have reported him and went over his head about it, and unfortunately, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because I think later I wasn't the only one, because he only recruited people that worked under him, and it was odd. I think if I'd have went over to his manager or something like that.
That is incredibly unethical. In fact, there's a whole article at the Skeptic's Dictionary, skeptic.com, devoted to MLM harassment. MLM being multi-level marketing. I had a Taekwondo instructor once bring in his upline for some scheme or other on a day when everybody was training for their belt. So he had a captive audience at that point, and I quit that school.
Yeah, the other thing too, and I tuned in late, did you guys cover invention marketing services?
No, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and we only have an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, I got to say, I regret I do have some personal experience with that as well. They they advertise on TV and say, hey, give us a few $1,000 and we'll market your invention and you'll get rich. And of course, usually they just end up keeping your money.
Right. Well, remember I don't know if you heard this, but one of the first things I said is whenever somebody tells you that you could make a lot of money for very little effort, the first question you should ask is, where is the money coming from? And if you find that the answer is you, then you probably shouldn't get involved.
Well, I'll admit I was 20 and stupid at the time, unfortunately. And this is one good thing about the Internet is it's now very easy to expose things like this, and before you really couldn't expose them very easily. There's a website out there called ripoffreport.com, and it has lots of stuff like this on it.
I have to check it out. And while I didn't get sucked into the Amway thing, I believe my parents did, which is kind of what set me up so that I wouldn't do it. I walked into a mall one day while I was in the Navy. I was probably 19 or 20, and it was, I don't even remember the name of the company now. I'm a lifetime member, evidently. I haven't heard from them in, 20 years. But it was, hey, here's 1,500 free CDs, and you'll be a lifetime member, and here's our product catalog, and sell things. And it was so obviously another one of those, and yet and by the way, there was a sign-up fee.
Yeah, right.
$1,500. Which was huge for somebody in the Navy, X number of years ago. But they had it all set up to where you could
anyway. Yeah.
You could, you just go ahead and they'd automatically deduct it from your check. Oh, it was brilliant.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a lifetime member of something where I can spend more money if I wanted to. But I have, and you know what? Those little coupons for all the free CDs were all like buy one get one free things that I never used in the first place. So.
Oh, we're being reminded by the control room that Dick DeVos did, in fact, run for the governor of Michigan. So that answers a question I had earlier.
And as a reminder, since we were more than halfway through the show, telephone number's up. Anybody wants to call in, you can talk about this topic or something else. It doesn't matter. Whatever strikes your fancy, as long as you're willing to have a conversation, we're probably willing to have it.
Yeah,
and
you can
after
even
the
talk
program,
about atheism on the Atheist Experience.
Or your religious beliefs. We don't mind. And I'll play nice today. And if you're a believer, you can call in and tell us what you believe and why. And I promise not to call you a moron.
Ironclad?
For today.
Okay.
That M word will not escape my lips again.
He's doing penance.
But as a reminder, we'll be going to dinner at El Arroyo after the show. The address is up on the screen. We're on until 4:30. We get down there around 5 o'clock. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. You do not have to be a member to attend, and that goes for all of our events with the exception of a couple of things, like the Solstice Party and the Bat Cruise, where it's for members and guests. And we had an out-of-town guest join us for the Solstice Party last night. So, the membership is not a requirement for any event like this. But
okay. Callers off?
There's more calls coming in, but we can...
But yeah, I'll keep going. The thing I want to emphasize about these scams is that I think the last caller made the really perfect comment, which was, I was young and dumb and fell for it. And I think that's kind of a point that I want to make, is that we're all young and dumb at some point. And even many of us continue to be old and dumb. And that's not a slam on everybody who joins. I mean, the thing is that these emotional tactics work, even on people who fancy themselves skeptics. And Amway, I think, is not populated exclusively by stupid people and scam artists.
You're talking about, you just said something that kind of triggered something about even people who fancy themselves skeptics. Skepticism, critical thinking, is a skill set that you have to hone.
Right.
You hone it partly from investigation, reading, research, being educated by other people. You also hone it from life experience as well, like we do everything else. You put your hand on the stove and it gets burnt, and you realize very quickly that this is not a good move. In my case, I was someone who would have considered themselves to be a skeptic and a critical thinker, and was to some extent in most areas of my life, but not with regard to religion. For some reason or another, my religious beliefs never, well, eventually they did, but they had never fallen under the critical eye of skepticism. They'd never been examined. It never even occurred to me to question. For some strange reason, and this is common, my religious belief got set up in this little compartment where it was safe from everything, no matter how reasonable and rational I was about other things.
Yeah, and I think that compartmentalization of religion is something that is deliberately encouraged by memes through religion, that even if you are somebody who is a skeptic, you can still be gullible and fall for emotional pleas.
Right.
And if the emotional plea sort of carries a hidden mind virus with it that says, and by the way, anybody who questions this is bad. So, don't spend too much time devoting intellectual energy to this, because you just have to have faith, get up on stage and drop your pants when your upline tells you to.
When you hear these horror stories from these former Amway folks who were disappointed, that things didn't turn out, those are the losers who didn't put in the effort, who didn't,
yes,
make the attempt to network and build a business or whatever.
So, I mean, the same thing applies to religion as applies to Amway. When you have a group like Amway that has a very large public presence, one of the things they do a lot is tout celebrity endorsements a whole lot. So, I mean, they've got financial big shots. Like, I remember this guy named John Sestina, who was supposed to be a big name in the early 90s when I was being recruited. And I recently went to search for John Sestina's name because he was a big Amway backer. And every single link I found about him was about Amway. I mean, that's not to say that he might not have been a great financial wizard, but I mean, he became intensely focused on Amway, as far as I could tell. And then they have, politicians, they have doctors, lawyers, they shove these in front of the public eye as much as possible to show you, look, see, real smart people are involved in this, and they must have thought about them deeply. They must have thought about these issues deeply because they're so smart. So you don't have to.
Yeah. So Amway's using the smart people, and Scientology uses the pretty people.
Right.
Well,
Amway uses some pretty people too. Although, as far as I remember, the only people I could ever remember who were celebrities for Amway were Meg Ryan at one point, and one of the Smothers Brothers.
I'm betting it was Dick.
I think it might have been Dick.
Tommy's way too crafty for that.
So, Amway just doesn't have the celebrity draw that Scientology does. But, I mean, it's still the same style of tactic.
Maybe if Amway had, once you finally got,
Tom
500
Cruise.
underlings,
Yeah.
they told you about how the aliens were manufacturing these products and then putting them in the catalog for you. And that's why we could save so much money, because aliens work really cheap.
They were bearing the costs.
Yes.
They've come up with their replicator technology generates the laundry detergent.
Yes. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to awaken the inner potential of every human on the planet so that we can rise to their level and be able to replicate things on our own. And then we will go out and help some other poor planet that's in need.
Right.
Meanwhile, we're getting rich.
Of course, I mean, you know, if they did this, this would be the last desperate attempt to hold on to people who have gotten past the buying stuff, recruiting people, and recruiting people to recruit people stage, and didn't quite make it into the I'm making lots of money off of suckers who are buying my motivational stuff stage. So let's see, that's all for Amway. And again, I just want to leave people with the message that just because you're smart doesn't mean you're not gullible. I've been gullible all the time in the past, and you know, you need to pay attention to this stuff and not buy into something just because you trust the people who are pushing it. You know, the word con man has at its root the word con, which is short for confidence. It's part of the etymology of the word. The reason con men are called confidence men is because the first thing they do is try to inspire confidence in the people who they're bringing in. Try to develop some trust that is outside of any evidence that they might have to bring to the table. Just try to get you to trust them as a person. So religions do that, and salespeople do that.
Yeah, it's, you know, there's kind of a couple different ways, you know, and I'm not an expert in sales at all. Matter of fact, I suck at it. But you have, whether you have the fast-talking, you know, carnival barker style, you know, are you sick and tired of having to clean the house and do all the work around your house? Well, I've got just a product for you. Or the guy who's saying, you know, my wife constantly came to me and said, you know, I really wish we could spend more time together. I really wish that I could help out in other ways, but there's just so much stuff to do around the house, and I realize that you don't have the, you know, no matter which tactic you're using, you're still making an emotional plea, and whether or not it's successful depends on the person you're talking to as to what style is going to appeal more to them. It's the same reason that, and it's probably the key reason, that when you watch one of these huge televangelists, over the span of an entire sermon on television, you will have hyper fast talking excited stuff and then immediately go right into weeping and soft talking. It is this kind of rhythmic, hypnotic, emotional play because it works, because that's the type of thing we respond to.
One of those things is designed to work on each of those types of people, right?
Yeah. Let's keep the entire audience entertained, and we'll throw a joke in, and you know, then we'll talk about, you know, the poor crippled lady who came to see me last week, and I lengthened her leg, and she was better and walked. Praise Jesus! And I'd like to take this ministry around to other places in the country. If only you'd open your wallets and help it. Could you sow a seed of faith today? You know, it says in the good book that we reap as we sow. You can't possibly do any reaping until you do some sowing. Okay, never mind, I can't do that.
No, that was pretty good. Bravo.
It's just, I don't want to. People are sleazy. I mean, it's a different type of sleaze. I don't want to put them necessarily in the same category.
Oh, I would.
Well, we got actually
but
Mike on the line.
I want to bring up a quick quote by Michael Shermer, who says, smart people are very good at rationalizing things that they came to believe for unsmart reasons.
Right.
That's kind of what I wanted to get to.
So we